Hello everybody, I just wanted to pop on here and share some things as per usual. If you hear, noise and wind and everything, I have my little window open. If you didn't know, I live in an RV and I'm parked at a park right now, and I'm visiting Florida for the month. But anyway, yeah, there are a couple messages that I want to kind of get out and share. So a little background information. I have some health issues, and one of the things that I've been dealing with for a while is histamine intolerance, and my symptoms vary. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to do my best to explain it. You can also just look it up, that might be better. But histamines, in my understanding, are like our body's tiny little ambulances that deliver, sustenance and nutrients and support, or I don't know exactly what they are responsible for carrying, but I know that they are released from the body when we have an allergic reaction, or I think like if we get an injury or something, and I think they can also be released during like trauma, as like a body response. And there are, I kind of want to say more foods than not are what are called histamine liberators. And histamine liberators, when you eat them, like citrus fruits are histamine liberators. Most stone fruits, dark, like chlorophyll rich greens like deep green kale, for example, and I think maybe spinach might be low histamine, shellfish, lots of things are what are called histamine liberators. And so sometimes when I eat those things, my body will break out in eczema. And right now it's visible on my face. I usually have very clear skin on my face, but especially after I take a shower, and the hot water kind of creates this like aggravated inflammatory response. But I'm sharing this to give you background information on my main message, which I'll probably title a video something relating to this, which is there's a couple different things. What I want to talk about is the way that your subconscious influences your physical experience and physical manifestations in your life. And my health issues are revealing some deep-rooted subconscious beliefs and ideas and things like this, and they're actually very sad, but they're not me. They're not consciously who I want to be, who I am, but I'm a human. We're all human. So sometimes in life we fall into moments or even cycles of pain and depression, and sometimes our thoughts and our beliefs can tend towards really negative things, like, well, I don't want to say negative because I don't want to judge them. Every experience, every feeling, it all comes from somewhere, and I don't want to create any kind of aversions or strong preferences or like projections about what I think you should be thinking or you should be feeling. That is the furthest thing, the furthest quality from the qualities that I actually want to embody and share. I want to embrace depth and diving into the deep, dark, scary, gross, uncomfortable, whatever it is, because oftentimes those shadowy aspects are, they hold keys to our own liberation. So I really don't like even saying the word negative thoughts. It just doesn't feel good, because I don't see, painful, uncomfortable thoughts, even thoughts that are programmed to create more pain. I don't like using the word negative, because for me it just creates unnecessary hang-ups in my mind, and I feel yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna just leave that there. That's just my feeling and my thought on using the word, calling experiences negative. Yeah, I think some people will understand and some people will disagree, and that's fine. So anyway, yeah, what was I saying? Negative thoughts, emotions, whatever. So sometimes these beliefs, we have certain beliefs and they create manifestations in our life. And I lost my train of thought there because I was getting caught up in arguing with invisible people in my mind, because I've not found many spaces where I can talk about these things and really feel super understood. So I hope you'll be understanding and patient while I kind of sort this out and try to communicate what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. And I love doing videos because this gives me a platform to, express these things that are very fundamentally important to me. So yeah, I might be jumping around a little bit, but I'll get there eventually. But yeah, so like one of the main messages that I wanted to share, or that's coming up for me, is your life is worth living. So, and I'll share a personal story with you. So as I've just shared, I have this histamine intolerance, these health issues that make you can see the redness and the like agitation on my face, and I have it on my skin. I mean, I don't know how easy it is to see on the camera, but you can kind of see some redness over there, but I get these like flare-ups, like even sometimes when I'm eating very clean, I get flare-ups where my body and my symptoms, and I'm gonna get to this, but they reflect the subconscious fears and beliefs that I hold, and I'll get more into this. I keep saying that. But I was meditating today and I kind of honestly received a download about it, or a reminder of something that I actually learned a while back in a therapy session, which I will also share about. So my physical symptoms include full body eczema and this quality of like itchiness that feels like 100 mosquito proboscises. Is that what they're called? I don't know if they're called something else, but I know the moths have the proboscis and they use it to drink nectar, and I guess whatever. The mouth of the mosquito that they stick in your skin and then they drink your blood from. Imagine 100 of those like over the surface area of like the size of like a BB pellet or something. It feels like sharp, painful, and shocking. When you feel a mosquito bite you like twitch and you're like, ah, it's like painful, but it's not exactly, it doesn't really hurt, but it's like sharp, and it sends this kind of very finely pointed electric agitation through your nervous system, and you have this flinch reaction and you slap it away. That's what my skin feels like beneath the surface when I get these rashy flare-ups. And I will just add that sometimes it's a lot easier to feel physical discomfort than emotional discomfort, especially if you've endured things like abuse, right? Which is the case for me. I was abused in different institutions, including the education system, school. Growing up in that was traumatic, but it wasn't even the worst of it. But I was sent to I basically was sent to a troubled teen industry, what I believe is a cult in Utah. And if I recommend watching Paris Hilton's documentary called Breaking Code Silence, or That's Her Movement. I don't know if that's the exact name of the documentary, but a friend of mine showed me that, and I'm grateful that I saw it. And Paris Hilton was also sent to a troubled teen industry in Utah, where institutionalized abuse is prolific in that state and in that industry, because people basically prey off of, you know, vulnerable adolescents and, you know, broken families, broken communities, you know, kids who aren't getting their needs met. They don't have, in my case, I was, you know, I grew up enduring abuse, and psychologically, emotionally, not physically, and it drove me to pursue a relationship with a predator online that I met, and his family runs a traffic ring. I don't know if they still do what they do, but this is a story that I'll share more in detail at some point. But I went through this, and I was so emotionally devoid of empathy and, you know, having a safe space to express myself and a sense of community, you know, all these things. And it drove me to seek out comfort from some random person online, and I was 16 at the time. And I, you know, turned 17 in winter of 2015, I'm sorry. And so in 2014, yeah, I met this predator, and he almost trafficked me. And we've had, you know, him and his family privately background check, investigated, thousands of dollars spent on digging into these people, and they're predators. They operate like a trafficking business. His family, his blood family, and it's out there. Florida, where, well, I mean, I was living in New York at the time, actually, but the guy was living in Miami. But Florida is one of the top 5 states in the U.S. where human trafficking is an issue, is a thing. So I basically just grew up traumatized, enduring abuse. I was sad all the time. I felt unseen, unheard all the time. I was gaslit, you know, classic narcissistic experiences. And they still haunt me in some ways. I have, like, it varies, and healing is not linear, as they say, and so I did deal with PTSD, CPTSD from all these experiences for years and years, and I also have found so many, and I've been introduced to so many, like, otherworldly, miraculous, magical, psychological, spiritual healing modalities that have allowed me to regress back into the emotional roots of these. My eyelid is twitching right now. Yeah, to regress back into the emotional roots of these issues, traumas, and through things like meditation and somatic therapies, I have undone chronic illness, like chronic symptoms. I've healed migraines. I have already been through a cycle where I did heal the eczema. I got on top of it, the histamine intolerance. And I had a therapy session one time. We were doing like a somatic kind of journey, which is essentially where I have my triggers, my emotions, the pain, the thing that I'm trying to work on, and then I'm guided through a somatic journey of sensing. So I feel my physical sensations, and I observe any visions or things that come into my mind. And a lot of the time when I do somatic journeys, I see visions. And it's like, you know, movies play out in my head. And it's very similar to a shamanic kind of journey. Or if people are familiar with plant medicine, I think it's pretty similar, although I don't do plant medicine because for my nervous system it's too intense, and it has re-traumatized me in some cases, or in one case, and it also has not served me in the long run and with the same efficacy as techniques like meditation and somatic therapies have. and that's personal to me, and it's not any kind of judgment on, you know, psychedelics or plant medicine or anything, because they are necessary for the people who need them, including people that I love. So I am an advocate for the safe, therapeutic, intentional, shamanic use of those things if they are, you know, calling to you and actually supportive. But for me, they're not. But all I'm talking about plant medicine for is just to draw a parallel between the therapies that I've done and how it's similar to that. But anyway, through doing somatic therapies and things, and in this particular therapy session, I am able to regress into the roots of these traumas. And this has happened a couple times where certain emotional patterns or illness, health symptoms, you know, chronic symptoms I would go back to the memories where those things came from, and it would be revealed to me the roots of specific issues. And when I was doing a specific therapy session with my recent therapist, I regressed into the memory when I was 8 years old of where my migraines, eczema, when I was 16, I was diagnosed with agitated depression, where that came from. And one of my symptoms with the histamine intolerance is proprioception wonkiness. And so proprioception is your awareness of your body in space. It's like coordination. So, you know, if you feel your hand and you squeeze it and you know, it feels normal. You don't even think about it really until you have an experience where you feel the ghost of your hand, not inside of your physical hand, but it feels like your hand is elsewhere. And that was one of the symptoms that I would experience when I would get these flare-ups with migraines or with whatever else. And it makes sense that my body manifested that as a physical symptom in response to traumas where I was legally kidnapped and abducted across the country to be sent to a troubled teen industry. I was abused in that institution, and that wasn't the only time I was abused. And I've endured years and years of this cumulative trauma that has manifested in these intelligent, biologically, psychosomatically intelligent ways in my body. And that is exactly why I don't like calling these things negative, because every symptom has its intelligence. And that is one thing that I wish more of our culture understood. Every symptom, every pattern has its intelligence. It is time on earth that we recognize that and share the tools and spread the light to illuminate and understand the roots of these symptoms and the intelligence behind them, so that we can learn what those things are serving in us, so that we can consciously rework those patterns, get to the subconscious, connect with it, relate with it, create creativity, be artists, create possibilities for new ways of orienting and relating with ourselves, with the world, with people, so that we can serve our subconscious needs and acknowledge and meet our animal selves, the traumatized parts that are, you know, creating so much turbulence for us through things like health issues. I mean, this histamine intolerance that I've been dealing with interrupts my daily life. I wake up feeling that kind of sharp, shocking, itching feeling that I described about being bit by a million mosquitoes in a tiny, tiny point. It feels like fire and needles under my skin. And taking a hot shower is agitating sometimes, and sometimes I feel anxious about eating food or what to eat, and it creates this weird relationship with food and craving and obsession and like restriction and fear, discomfort around what is safe for me to eat without creating a crazy flare-up. And I used to get migraines, and they would be accompanied with all these symptoms that I just expressed. But anyway, when I was in that therapy session and I had that memory of my 8-year-old self, I was basically reprocessing the trauma that I had endured at that point, and it just downloaded, it clicked, it made sense. The emotions that were unsafe for that 8-year-old version of me to process at that time in her life, in my past, became trapped in my body. And gradually over time I have been able to safely release those parts through somatic therapies and dance and different things like this, and yeah, but it's still there's obviously still some energy dormant and trapped in there that's creating these physical symptoms. So very unfortunately, the therapist that I had at that point, she saw what I was experiencing. It was very shamanic for me, and I felt empowered, I felt grounded, I felt aware of what I was going through and what it meant and what was gonna come of it. And so I was allowing myself to be that 8-year-old. I was really embodying, I was being the 8-year-old, and my therapist became concerned for me, so she interrupted my process and brought me back into the room, and it only exacerbated my symptoms because I felt on top of feeling that trauma, finally feeling safe to express and release it. On top of that, I felt like there was another outer world real life scenario where this person in front of me wasn't equipped to meet what I needed, and to no shame or fault of hers, but it wasn't appropriate for me, and it set me back. Like it interrupted my process. It paused it, and I consider my work with her as like a staircase, and I walked up so far, but that staircase ended, and I didn't realize that there was not a next step until I leaned over and saw this open ground. If I took another step, I would have fallen, and it was kind of traumatic for me to be in that deep of an experience, and then to be suggested to be put on medication. That honestly kind of fucked me up a little bit, and I was like, okay, we obviously have very different value systems, so I can't continue this, and it deeply hurt me, and then I learned from it, and I feel like I can accept the situation, and I release it, and it just taught me and really drilled in the necessity for people like me to have like spaces where we can not only individually but as a society, we need to learn to acknowledge again the intelligence of the symptoms. We need to learn to relate to these symptoms, treat it like a theater, if you will, act it out, you know what I mean? One of my perspectives about therapy is that it's role playing. It's psychic theater. And the reason I say that is because our psyches have characters. They're filled with characters. They're filled with different people in there. We have parts. We have aspects. We're human. We are nature. We have shadow. We have light. And there are a billion, infinite different permutations of how that energy expresses itself. And so in order to resolve and express our nature, this primal energy, we need outlets. We need ritual. We need containers. We need acknowledgement. We need depth. We need courage. We need shamans. We need people who can understand navigating these spaces. And I feel privileged genuinely to share my story, because I know that the things that I've struggled with and the blockages that I've confronted on my path to resolving my own I don't even want to call them my issues, because they stem to a society at large. They're beyond me, because I am one human of the human family, the human organism. We're a social species, we're interdependent. Nothing I experience is exclusive to me in a certain way. It's like my state of being, my psychological composition, it is so interwoven with my culture, with my people around me. And that's why I'm telling my stories. They're vulnerable. People are gonna judge them. They're gonna close their ears after 2 minutes because I said something, or because of something that they disagree with, and they're not gonna stick around to the point to realize what I'm trying to say. And that's it's created this almost dissociated part of me that's like, I'm aware of all these things going on, but who else is, and what are we doing about bringing this to light and actually helping people who are traumatized, or who are trying to heal from abuse, and who are finding it in places that are not fully equipped to support them. You know what I mean? There's pieces. There's so many different pieces and parts to healing and to resolving trauma, and it goes way deeper than I see, typically, commonly, openly acknowledged in my culture. And I am so grateful that I've learned what I've learned from people who have taught me these things, and grateful for opportunities to work with people who have these shamanistic tendencies and who understand the interconnectedness of things like, how physical health symptoms are manifestations of even ancestral traumas, and our ancestral patterns turn on and off, epigenetics, different genes in our bodies, and create different vulnerabilities and different strengths. And we have the power and the, growing, budding knowledge in science of epigenetics, and how different mindsets and lifestyles and diets and behaviors and things can activate or deactivate different genes in us. And it's just, there's so much to this. So what I'm here to really say is, now that I've shared this piece of my story, is that if you are going through a dark time where you feel like you are having either physical health issues, mental health issues, emotional issues, spiritual issues, whatever it is, first of all, your symptoms have an intelligence, whatever it is. It doesn't mean you need to identify with them. It doesn't mean you need to, accept that you want to live the way that you are living, or that these forces of nature are coercing you to live in. And what I mean by that is, if sometimes the waves that we get of different emotions or depression or whatever, they're so strong and they're so coercive, and they almost convince us, they almost make us believe that we aren't worth living. Because if, like, what is the point if we're so itchy all the time? It's kind of funny, but like, I'm trying to make a point, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes we are driven by our conditions and entanglements and things, to actually believe that we are worthless, that we're helpless. But I'm here to say and to testify by sharing my story that's not the case. And I want to offer encouragement. And so if you're seeing this and you're like, oh my God, this resonates, I need help, I don't know where to begin, I'm very happy to share resources. So I'm gonna put some things that helped me the very most in the description of this video. So if you feel like you're suffering or trapped in cycles or whatever, you're going through things that, no one has been able to explain, no one has been able to help. I mean, I've been there, And it's agonizing at times, and you are not alone. There are so many people who aren't even talking about their experiences, but they're going through the same things. Okay, there are lots of dead ends in our physical culture in the Western world. There are lots of it is impossible. I want to acknowledge that it does feel impossible to resolve certain issues in a culture where they're not acknowledged or where they're not understood from a certain framework, a certain perspective. Doesn't mean that our culture doesn't have incredible resources and things to help us, but for me and for people like me who've endured severe trauma and are sensitive and whatever, and dealing with these chronic issues, and like nothing externally has provided long-term changes or solutions. Yeah, it can be really tough. So I send my love, I send my empathy, and I really hope this can be helpful to and reach the right people. And yeah, I find this is a pattern over and over again, that it seems like the only thing that actually helps me resolve chronic health issues and chronic reoccurring trauma patterns that keep me from actually embodying this version of heaven on earth, which is possible, by the way. I am a huge advocate and have so many testaments to the reality of imbibing heaven on earth. Like, we have the keys to be free from these things. We don't need to accept chronic illness for our whole lives. I mean, I speak for myself. Everyone has their own walk, their own journey, but I've dealt with chronic illness. I've dealt with chronic mental and physical illness, and I have resolved my symptoms through somatic awareness, through shamanic journeys, and through somatic therapies, to name the top 3. And to give you a quick example before I end this video, I was working with a woman named Catherine Rollins, who I consider her like a shamanistic type person. I was working with her, and one of the sessions that she provided was basically, it was a somatic session where I came with my nagging emotion, my nagging experience that I wanted to get rid of, and what she did was she guided me through tracking that emotion through my body and just listening. And sometimes it took a couple days, it took a couple sessions to actually get to the root of it, but we would revisit that emotion and I would connect with it and pay attention. And this is where meditation is my number one tool that I recommend for healing chronic mental and physical issues, because meditation helps you sharpen your awareness like you sharpen a pencil, so you can more easily and accessibly do and experience somatic therapies that require your attention. The sharper you make your attention, the more clear of a relationship you will have with your internal conditions, and more clarity is better all around, because you can better understand why your symptoms are the way they are, where they're coming from, what they're communicating with you. So anyway, she guided me through tracking my awareness over this nagging emotion that was perturbing me, and that I came to her to help find relief from. And after 3 sessions, I had what I consider a spontaneous past life regression, because there were these visions that arose in my mind, and I recognized the characters in my vision, and I recognized their energy, their souls, and I saw this movie, this dynamic play out, and I just let it happen. I just watch it. That's another thing that meditation is extremely useful for, is something that a lot of people even culturally get caught up in, is attachments. And again, this is why I don't like pointing a finger at a symptom or a thought and saying that's negative, that's positive. No, because in meditation we become an observer and we objectively view what's playing out, and we sit from a space of curiosity and openness. And again, it doesn't mean that we're accepting or being passive in our lives about accepting behaviors or conditions that are not supportive for us. It is not nothing. It has nothing to do with that. You can be unattached to whether an experience is positive or negative, and you can be in control of your life and create exactly the conditions that you want to live within internally. Anyway, because I say this because a lot of people still are judgmental towards or afraid of the unknown, which is understandable. It's valid. Everybody's at a different level, at a different place. So I have to understand that. We have to understand that as well. But I'm at a place where I'm comfortable, like watching these psychic movies play out in my head, and I don't think anything of it. I'm just like, oh, there's something here for me. So anyway, I was doing this session with her, and I had this spontaneous passive progression, and I brought my conscious mind into it. She asked me a question. She said, okay, seeing that this is what's playing out right now, this memory, this psychic theatrical display that you're experiencing right now, or past life memory, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same to me. What would your conscious present mind choose to do in this situation? So I brought my consciousness into this subconscious theater. I blended the two. And after that session, my menstrual cycles shortened from 6 days to between 4 and 5 days, and my cramps were gone. And I had this session with her, I want to say in 2020. Probably it was 2020 or it was 2019. I don't remember. It was one of those years. It was like at least 4-ish years ago. And every single menstrual cycle since then has been cramp free, except for when I eat like crap. If I eat like a tub of ice cream or something, I'm gonna have some cramps. And it correlates with emotions. If I'm like, there have been times where I've been like deep in grief or like unable to kind of process, and then I get cramps. But I don't have cramps when I'm on my period. I experience a blissful menstrual cycle. My flow is like light, medium. I have energy during my periods. A lot of the time I can feel the shift in my hormones as if someone is pouring a cup of liquid into my body, and I'm like, my period's coming soon, and it's blissful. Is menstruation comes, and it's a time when we are vulnerable and we're releasing and we're shedding, and there's it's like we need to be in a relaxed state, in a receptive kind of passive state as women who menstruate, in order to release. You know what I mean? Like, imagine you're swinging on a trapeze. If you want to fly, you need to jump and release yourself. If you want to drop, if you want to do a flip, you need to release your grip and relax. So yeah, that happened, and that is my testament to one of my testaments to how somatic work can help heal chronic issues, chronic illnesses. So I hope this video is helpful. I hope it's encouraging. If you are someone who is feeling desperate and stuck and emotional and lost or whatever, like me and my self and my red swollen skin is here to empathize with you and to encourage you and to really be an ally in this time, because these are all things that I am going through and I have gone through, and it always comes and goes in waves. Sometimes we find ourselves in these dark periods that nothing makes sense. It feels like there are dead ends everywhere. But but that just means that there's an opportunity for revolution and change and expansion and growth. And yeah, I'm gonna say the word evolution again because it's awesome. So thanks for being here. Sending you my love. Check out the description for the resources, and I'll see you next time.